In this very first episode of Crisis and Consequences, we're going to dig into the disturbing saga of Sante and Kenny Kimes, a mother-son duo whose bond fueled a series of crimes that stunned law enforcement and left a trail of devastation across America. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Crisis and Consequences, a true crime podcast with a purpose. We dive into murder stories and the complicated humans behind them, blending storytelling, dark humor, and real conversation. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast contains dark, troubling, and explicit content.
All right.
Welcome, everybody, to our very first official episode of Crisis and Consequences, the true crime podcast with a purpose. We're not just telling stories about murder and mayhem. We're exploring what brings people to their breaking point and how understanding crisis can help us prevent the next tragedy. And any support we receive from you helps support people rebuilding their lives in some of the worst human crises imaginable here at One Heart. So I'm Charity.
And I'm KB.
All right, KB, before we get into our story today, crisis this week you want to share?
Well, not to be dramatic, but the only crisis I think I've got,
drama.
we have so much work. I feel like we say that all the time. We have always so much stuff going on all at the same time because we are go-getters. We like to get things done. And so inevitably we'll have several, and with all the different things that fall under One Heart's umbrella, we just have a lot going on.
It's a lot.
But my crisis this week has been, I'm not a coder, and I have been dealing with code. We are doing some really important work with trying to put together some cool infographics and data. And so in that, I've been struggle busting it with certain like animated graphs. And
Struggle busting.
yes.
I like that verb.
So anyways, that's my crisis. I'm almost there though.
Yeah.
It's one of those things too, I think, with finding that happy medium of like, it's not what I want it to be quite yet. But
we always get there.
But that's okay. We'll get there. It will do for now.
Yeah.
Like that's where I'm at this point. Because if I spend one more minute like trying to recreate it, then my brain might break, and that would be a crisis. So
That would be.
What about you?
Everybody's just sick. So I have a to-do list that's not quite as bad as yours, but it's up there. And like 3 levels down are all out sick, which means shit rolls uphill. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So literally I've got teams going on. Oh, wait, something just happened. Got to make sure there's not a crisis I have to go out and deal with. Okay, we're good. But it's just that kind of a thing where it's like it's the stuff you can't plan for.
Yeah.
And it just
Fire drills.
keeps you all, and fire drills. That's great. Well, my friend, for our very first episode of the new podcast, I have one for you today, and all of you sick bastards who seem to just love this stuff. I'm kidding. We appreciate it, actually. This one is just really intriguing, and I think it's going to demonstrate like those critical times in a young person's life when they are so molded and manipulated by their caregiver.
Sure.
And this just takes it to a level that fortunately is infrequent to my knowledge. I don't think this is a very frequent thing, but it is really crazy. So, you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, I guess. Buckle
Okay.
up. Here we go.
All right, Buttercup, 1991. What were you doing in 1991?
Oh, I think I was getting together with my neighborhood friends and figuring out like choreography dance moves that we could come together and make up and then perform for our parents.
Well, February of 1991, I was turning 18.
So you were not doing that. What
I
were you?
was not. You don't want to know what I was doing. I was abusing a lot of alcohol and still rocking my grades.
You were trying to be an adult in a fun way, probably.
I was totally adulting. I was doing such a good job. No, anyway.
Are you ready to re-enter the workforce or find a career that actually fits? Or maybe you're an employer, tired of noisy platforms that miss the mark? Try Focus, a smarter hiring tool that helps you cut through the noise and focus on what matters. Visit focus.work today. That's FOQUS.WORK.
So February 1991, Ken Holmgren receives a phone call that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His father, Elmer, was a lawyer who'd fallen on hard times, and he was calling his son, Ken, from Las Vegas. And he told him, hey, good news, ? I've taken this job with a really wealthy couple. I think things are going to turn around, blah, blah, blah. But then he said something that made Ken, this is what he couldn't forget. If you don't hear from me in a few days, call the ATF. And Ken never heard from his father again.
That is super weird.
Gut instinct. I mean, if you're feeling that enough to tell your son that.
Like, if you don't hear from me in a few days.
Run to Udaway.
Don't be taking this on.
Go to Udaway. Like, I just don't get it. But he never heard from his dad again. And what Ken didn't know then was that his father had become entangled with one of the most dangerous criminal partnerships in American history, a mother and son so devoted to each other and to their crimes that detectives would later dub them Mommy and Clyde.
Oh, weird.
Wasn't that great? Ugh. Clever. Okay.
It's gross.
All right. So now to understand this nightmare that Sante Kimes would become, we need to go back to July 24th of 1934 in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. She was born Sante Louise Singers, and she was the third of 4 children born to an East Indian father and an Irish-American mother. When Sante was just 5 years old, her father died of heart disease. But she would later tell a very different story. She would tell a story of abandonment and degradation. She claimed her father deserted her family and that her mother had become a sex worker. And it was one of the countless lies that would become her MO. She became very good at spinning tales to get her needs met.
So did her mom, I mean, after her dad did die, I mean, I guess that's not really abandonment by choice, but...
I'll get to that.
Okay.
According to her younger sister, Retha, the truth was far darker in different ways. Retha would later describe Sante as a pyromaniac who held lit matches under her fingers. As a child, Sante allegedly tied up goats and dogs on the family farm using hat pins to torture them.
Oh.
You're just a little baby.
Those are really...
a little girl sociopath.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, okay. There was also an alleged incestuous relationship with her brother. Cannot corroborate that, but alleged.
Well, I mean, if she's doing that to animals, I feel like it wouldn't.
Brothers, yeah. So after the family moved to Southern California, the children ended up in foster homes and orphanages. Sante was the wild child of the family. She ran the streets of L.A. She often found herself hanging around a soda shop because that's what wild kids do back then. Yeah, on Melrose Avenue, owned by the Seligmans. One of the owner's sisters was looking to adopt a child, and they recommended Sante. So Ed and Mary Chambers adopted Sante, and she became Sandra Chambers and moved to Carson City, Nevada to start a new life in the 7th grade. Now, 7th grade, really hard time for any child, Absolutely. Let alone one that's already a proven sociopath and lost a parent, lost 2 parents, now is in the orphanage system, all the things. So at first... Sandy Chambers, she time to remake herself. She could have gone one of 2 ways. Mm-hmm. She blew it, but she appeared to fit in at first. So at Carson High School, she got decent grades. She was a cheerleader for the basketball team. She was the historian for the Spanish club. She was a member of the Glee Club. She was the co-editor of the school's newspaper. She was best known, though, for being boy crazy. So she never lacked for dates. Mm-hmm. Classmates recall of her. There was a darker side emerging as well as they started to get to know her. She was caught shoplifting at a local 5 and Dime. The offense wasn't prosecuted, however, and then once went on a shopping spree after stealing her adoptive father's credit card. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She seemed to be happy, so much so that when her own mother showed up in Carson City one day without warning and wanted her back, Sante refused. Like, I've had enough.
Well, yeah, it sounds to me. I mean, all the things you listed. Yeah. She's kind of having her cake and eating it too. I mean, yeah, she's having fun. She's kind of dipping her toes in the water.
Face in the cake, absolutely. And goats and dogs in the cake, and eating the cake. You're right. It's all about the cake. So when she graduated in 1952, she told people she was planning on going to college and becoming a journalist. Instead, 3 months of a whirlwind later, she marries high school sweetheart Lee Powers and then divorces him another whirlwind 3 months after that. After that, she did a 6-week secretarial course at Reno Business School and then bounced around for 2 years in Northern California, so mostly in like San Francisco and Sacramento with her friend Ruth, and they alternated between office work and coursework, so kind of back and forth. This was their life. A few years later, in 1956, Sante reconnects with an old high school boyfriend named Edward Walker. No, I can't talk today.
It's like a Boston accent.
I've never been to Boston. I don't know what's going on. Okay, Edward Walker, who was now a general contractor in Sacramento. They got married the following year. They had a son named Kent Walker. Okay, keep the names in mind. First boy is Kent. Okay, then she gets hooked on little pleasures like shoplifting and arson, and it starts to cause a rift in their marriage. Who would think?
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, and starting her criminal record, or let me rephrase that, her criminal record started in 1961, where they were actually prosecuting her for these things. So she started setting houses that her husband was building on fire so that she could collect the insurance money. And over the course of their marriage, like dozens of the houses he was constructing would burn down. And she also slept around. She had numerous affairs with her husband's wealthier business associates. Ed finally figured it out and had enough, and so he divorced her in 1969. Now she's disgraced because it's 1969 and she's this beautiful girl with this child and, all the stuff. So she was disgraced that her marriage had ended. She had to return to the streets of L.A., where she alternated between prostitution and other crimes. And this is prostitution as reported back in this day. Today we would call it sex work. Use your term. I don't care. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Court records show that she was arrested for grand theft in L.A. in 1965 and auto theft a few days later in Norwalk, California. And let me tell you the story of the car theft. One of her former lawyers, now retired, said, quote, Sante walked into a Cadillac dealership and conned the salesman into letting her test drive a convertible. Alone, of course. And of course, she never came back and drove the car for months as if she owned it. When police caught up with her, she told them she'd been given the car to test drive, and that's what she was doing. She's still test driving it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Contact.
Don't do that. Don't do this
that.
at home.
I mean, you could do that. You could try it, but there's going to be consequences. Okay, people. So contact with her adoptive parents ended, and when Mary Chambers died of cancer in 1969, Sante did not even attend the funeral. By now, she's looking for the big score, something or someone who could put her on easy street for the rest of her life. She really liked that Hollywood lifestyle, that whole trope. She began looking for a soulmate that she thought the same way she did and enjoyed the rush and the thrill of stealing. Like, can you imagine the singles ad on that one? Do you like sticking the little things in your pocket? I don't know. Do you have sticky fingers?
Because I do.
Yeah. Looking for a, sticky-fingered, I don't know. I should have workshopped that.
You should have. It's
recording.
like, what's that pina colada? Do you like pina coladas?
Yeah, sticky fingers.
And sticky fingers in the shade.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so from her first arrest in 1961 for petty theft, she would rack up 12 arrests and use at least 28 different aliases. So much so that the National Crime Information Center could not keep up with her. She's just changing it up on the fly. She stole cars from dealers in Honolulu. She walked out of a Washington hotel wearing a stolen mink coat. She sometimes impersonated Elizabeth Taylor, whom she slightly resembled, to gain access to exclusive venues and people. But her most audacious con involved finding her second husband. So let's enter into the story. Kenneth Kimes Sr.
Okay.
1971, Sante was reading a magazine when she came across an article about a motel tycoon named Kenneth Keith Kimes Sr. Who the hell was that? Oh, gosh. Who was getting divorced. He was getting divorced because his wife had had enough. She'd essentially helped him build a dynasty, and it was never enough. He just was workaholic, kept wanting to go. He had loose women, she said, near every property he traveled to. He was super controlling, and he had her followed and controlled what she could spend. He also screwed her out of anything from the divorce, even though she sacrificed everything to help him build this dynasty. And that article I mentioned, it noted his net worth conveniently, approximately $20 million at that time, which is equivalent to about $118 million today. And that is what Sante fixated on. So she later tells different versions of how they met. In one account, Sante walks into one of his hotels to use the phone, but she only had $100 bills. Oh. So Kenneth, seeing her distress, let her use his office phone. And whether that story was true or just another Sante fabrication, she got what she wanted. So she thoroughly seduced this guy, pretending to match him drink for drink, while secretly chucking her whiskey out probably into a plant, stirring her drinks with her little finger.
Oh, gosh.
So she really likes the sticky
Yeah.
finger thing. Yeah. Who knows where that finger's been, baby? I would not do it.
So gross.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay. I guess I don't know. I didn't know that was a turn on, but it worked on him. And evidently she learned these tricks of the trade from her mom. So this alleged sex work that her mom engaged in, like as I research further, it seems like there may be some validity to that.
Yeah.
She found out his favorite flower and had a perfume shop mimic the fragrance for her. Like, girl is going all out to seduce this guy. And after he was wasted, she would dominate him, calling the shots, and she ensnared him with every sexual trick in the book. So Kenneth Kimes may have once controlled his ex-wife, but Karma's a mutt-up named Sante, and he was the one being controlled now, and he did not stand a chance. So they wouldn't marry until 10 years later. Mm-hmm. But on March 24th, 1975, so just a couple years after they met, she gives birth to their son, Kenneth Kimes Jr., named Kenny. So her first son with the other husband is Kent, and now she's got a Kenny.
Good gravy.
Because I just realized KKK.
Okay, yeah. I was going to ask you that earlier.
Terrible.
I know. I was going to ask you that earlier if the Kimes was a K, because then it's like
It's a
KKK. And I was
K.
like, ugh.
That's really bad.
But that's probably, I mean, not.
And so he was the senior, so his parents really screwed the pooch
Yeah.
on that one because...
Yeah. But did they do it on purpose? I don't know.
Do that too. Anyway. So for Kenny, there was not going to be a single shot at a normal childhood. His father was an alcoholic, probably because his mom matching him drink for drink and just, ratcheted that up. And she was manipulated by his wife like a puppet. His mother smothered him with an unnaturally intense love. His first memories would be of police and investigators constantly showing up to investigate one shady scheme or another that his mother was involved in. Vittorio Rajo, who lived next door to the Kimes family in Las Vegas, said he was Kenny's first real friend. And Vittorio thought Kenny, even as a child, was being groomed for something. Mm-hmm. And these two were ballsy. They even faked a whole ambassadorship for her son so that they could mingle with D.C. elite people. They forged White House letters stating so-and-so requested a meeting with them. They did this because this is like that guy. Do you remember Fernando who tried to scam us?
Yes. Yeah.
He did shit like this. They did this because they had some get-rich-quick schemes. And newsflash, they were already rich. They already had all the money.
Why?
But they wanted to sell some sort of patriotic flag poster and have it displayed in every classroom in America. And we're trying to get in with the right people that can make that happen. So whatever. Shantae's older son from her first marriage, Kent Walker, would later write a book called Son of a Grifter about his experiences, if you're interested in picking that up. He described how his mother would have him crawl through windows when he was 8 or 9 years old, small enough to break into houses and steal what she wanted.
Oh, my gosh.
And their food was shoplifted. She'd steal cars, and they did not need to do it. It was the rush for her. She was always wealthy.
And you said she was an attractive woman?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like attractive men, or just attractive people in general, sometimes get away with stuff that you would think it's like, how are they, that's blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
But it's like they get away with it because the lure of their...
Where's his freaking dimples, like my husband, I think.
Where it's like, they're just like, oh, I don't know. It's like people just let them get away with it.
Yep. I know he'd pull stunts as a teenager, and none of the friends' circle's parents would think he was the ringleader because of the dimples. And it's like gives him this little halo effect, and you just look. I'm like, oh, dude, dimples are dangerous. All right. He said this. So Kent said, "There's probably not another son on this planet who loved his mother as much as I loved mine." He called himself his mother's biggest disappointment after he ran away from her criminal lifestyle. And so when he didn't work out, then Kenny came along, and she's got him from birth, baby. Yeah. Like, let's go. So he didn't stand a chance. Kent escaped. Kenny stayed. They were unnaturally close, like I said, like in an icky way.
Yeah, icky.
Yeah. No one was ever good enough for her son, so she would literally hire playmates for Kenny just so she could control the entire situation. In August of 85, Sante and Kenneth Sr. were arrested on charges that shocked even hardened investigators. Do you want to guess what they were charged with?
I have no idea.
Slavery.
What?
What is right?
I would have never in a million years guessed this.
Yeah. They had been recruiting young, undocumented women from Central America, promising them work as housekeepers in their mansions in Las Vegas, Hawaii, and San Diego. But once the women arrived, they were trapped. And the victims described bedrooms with deadbolts on the outside. They worked 7 days a week with no pay. They were beaten. One girl said Sante burned her with an iron.
Oh my
Which
gosh.
I've had it happen, and it sucks. They were tortured with hot water. They were locked in closets. The woman referred to Sante as Diablo, the devil.
Yes.
Kenny was just 10 years old when his mother was arrested on these slavery charges. He must have heard, even at 7 or 8 years old, the screams and cries of these girls locked up in their homes. And these girls were girls that they believed wouldn't be missed, that no one would be looking for because their families were in different countries. So if they disappeared,
who cares?
tough, right?
Ugh.
But one of them escaped, and that's how they were found out. So Kenneth Sr. took the plea agreement, and he entered into an alcohol treatment program. Sante was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for violating the anti-slavery laws. She served 3 years.
I was going to say 5 years.
And then just so y'all know, I mean, slavery back in these days, 5 years.
That's lame.
That's kidnapping.
Yep.
I mean, it's horrific. And was released in 1989. So for a brief period, 3 years, Kenny and his father actually lived a relatively normal life. And then Sante was released and came home. 5 years later, March of 1994, Kenneth Sr. died of an aneurysm or heart attack, depending on the source. Sante had his ashes spread in Hawaii. She also inherited millions of dollars. And she didn't even tell Kenny that his dad was dead. Mm-hmm. She just showed up at the airport to greet him one time with his dad's ashes in an urn. Like, this is quintessential sociopathic behavior. Like, I cannot fathom how my son, whom I allegedly care for, would feel over the fact of losing his. Like, it's just an aside. By the way, oh yeah, sorry, this is your dad.
Yeah. No, that's insane.
Yeah. Okay, but Sante, prison time wasn't all for naught because she learned a valuable lesson in prison. Prison does this to people. Leave no witnesses next time. Mm-hmm. So the housekeeper escaped. That's how she got in trouble. So next time, no witnesses. And now Sante had her new partner in crime, her son Kenny, who was thoroughly groomed and prepared to enter this lifestyle at this point. So murder buddy style obviously is so much more fun than going it alone. And this is really true mother-son bonding at
How old was he at this point?
a new level.
If you had to guess.
18,
Okay.
maybe. I'm guessing. That is a guess, but I think we'll get to that in a moment. So you remember Ken Holmgren's father, the lawyer who called and said, "Hey, if you don't hear."
So
from
this is
me,"
the family.
Yeah. Elmer had been hired by Sante and Kenneth Sr. as their lawyer. That's who he was working for.
Okay.
But Elmer had unknowingly stepped into something far more dangerous than just a legal matter. So on September of 1990. Fire erupted at the Kimes' beachfront mansion in Honolulu around 1 o'clock in the morning. Video from the time showed the house fully engulfed in flames. Fire investigators determined the blaze had multiple points of origin, like the bedroom, the dining room, the living room, which means the cause was arson, right? There was a suspicious detail in the case file. The Kimes had sold the property the previous year for $1.7 million, and the money was placed in escrow. But someone had reneged on the deal, giving various excuses for not selling, and then the house burned down. So Elmer Holmgren's role was never fully explained, but after that phone call in February of 91, where he told his son to contact the ATF if he didn't hear from him, Elmer vanished after the Kimes invited him to go on a trip with them to Costa Rica. Years later, after their arrest for murder, Kenny Kimes would confess to the police that his mother had told him she killed Elmer by hitting him in the head with a hammer in a car while she was riding in the back seat and Holmgren was in the front passenger seat. His body was never found, so charges were never filed. The ATF evidence related to the case was destroyed in the 9/11 attacks because they were in the World Trade Center.
Oh, no.
And Ken Holmgren, now 71 years old today, still doesn't have answers about what happened to his father.
That's
so,
awful.
Here's another one. 1996, September, Syed Bilal Ahmed went missing in Nassau, Bahamas. He was a 46-year-old investment banker, and he had been investigating irregularities in the offshore bank accounts of one Kenneth Kimes Sr., accounts that Sante had been using after her husband's death and keeping his credit cards active to finance her lifestyle. Ahmed was last seen having dinner with Sante and Kenny Kimes. The investigation, however, went nowhere, but years later, Kenny Kimes would confess to this murder too. He testified that he and his mother had acted together. They drugged Ahmed, drowned him in a bathtub, and then dumped his body offshore in the ocean. His body was never recovered. Like I said, charges were never filed. The Kimes duo was perfecting their method. Find someone who stood in their way or who had something they wanted.
Right. Kill him.
Dispose of the body where it'd never be found. But in 1998, they would make a critical mistake. So, David Kasdan, 63-year-old, he was a businessman who had made the fatal error of trusting Sante. He had allowed her to use his name on the deed of a home in Las Vegas, and it seemed like a favor for a friend kind of a situation. But
This is what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know that a person would...
Don't have friends.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, like, I think sometimes people... Even like that guy we were talking about before the show, which is a whole nother subject, but it's like when you get an attractive person, sometimes asking people for things, it's amazing to me how people just, I mean, it could be awful
Sex
things, but
appeal's a real thing.
oh yeah.
But she had other plans. So without his knowledge, she forged his signature. She took out a loan for more than $280,000 using that Las Vegas property as collateral. And when he discovered the forgery, he threatened to expose her. She called and threatened him back. So in March of 1998, Kenny drives to his home in Granada Hills, California. A drifter named Sean Little, who had been working for the Kimes family, goes along. Little waits outside while Kenny goes in. Little hears a gunshot, and according to Kenny's later confession, he shoots Kasdan once in the back of the head with a .22 caliber pistol on his mother's orders. They wrapped the body up, drove to LA International Airport, and they dumped his remains in a trash bin. Body was discovered soon thereafter, and then the house in Las Vegas, guess what happened to it? It burned.
No.
Yeah, well, weird, I know. So FBI and LAPD detectives both began investigating. They tracked the Kimes to a home in suburban LA, but when they arrived to question them, they pieced out without a trace. But they weren't running away. They already had their next thing planned. They headed to New York City for their biggest con yet, one that would finally bring their reign of terror to an end. And this is the big story. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. So Irene Silverman was 82 years old in the summer of 1998. She seemed decades younger. She was a former Radio City Music Hall rockette. She was a ballerina. She'd married multimillionaire Samuel Silverman in 1941. And after his death, she transformed their elegant Upper East Side townhouse into like a boarding house. So she rented out these converted apartments to high-profile renters like Daniel Day-Lewis and Shaka Khan, like high-end people. And a detective was quoted as saying, Irene liked to throw elaborate parties. She loved having interesting people come, affluent people. I'd love to hang out with Irene Silverman. I wish I was invited to one of her parties. So Irene carried chilled half bottles of Dom Perignon in her bag, ready to share with friends anywhere. Stories said she had a Renoir hanging in her bathroom. She had an elegant Paris flat. Like, she was the talk of the town, beloved in her neighborhood. She was vibrant, just completely in possession of her faculties, just like the life of the party. She was worth then somewhere between like $7 and $10 million. And her townhouse alone was valued at like almost $8 million. So to Sante and Kenny,
they were like, yes,
Mark, bring it. Okay. So the scheme began in Florida in 1998. So using an alias, because Shantae's good at that, she calls the title company to confirm that Irene Silverman was the sole owner of a Manhattan property. That is one thing that pisses me off about our country.
Is that you can
find this shit out. It's not effing business.
Yeah.
It should not
No,
be
it
okay.
shouldn't be that simple.
It should not. In May, she poses as Eva Guerra. Funny. Wasn't it Fernando? Anyway, Fernando was Aguirre. No, it was Aguirre. Never mind.
Okay.
Different last name, similar. So she calls Irene directly. She drops the name of Silverman's friend, Rudy Vicari, to gain trust. She said she was looking for an apartment for her assistant, a young man named Manny Guerin. Irene's business manager, Valerie McLeod, arranged for Manny to move into apartment 1B on Monday, June 15th, 1998. On or about Saturday, June 13th of that same year, Sante, Kenny, and an employee named Jose Alvarez loaded up their stolen Lincoln Town car in Florida and headed for New York. And as they drove through New Jersey, Kenny pointed out a grassy spot off the highway and remarked to his mom, that would be a perfect place to dump a body. Keep that in mind.
Jeepers.
Although Kenny arrived a day early, Irene and her staff allowed him to move into apartment 1B, and almost immediately Irene becomes suspicious. So the tenant was strange. He's like now this 6'1" young man with dark hair, green eyes, but he barely speaks. Every time he goes through the foyer and ends up the marble staircase, he shields his face from the security cameras. Some days he'd sneak in an older woman who would spend the night and was just as evasive. Irene's staff noticed that the bed in apartment 1B was often stripped.
Oh.
They found black trash bags and discarded rolls of used duct tape. Irene began documenting everything. I can just picture her with like little Nancy Drew.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, you know.
Just got a little flip.
That's right. She told her staff that she planned to evict Manny at her 4th of July party in 1998, just one day before her disappearance. Irene tells one of her assistants that she's going to serve Manny with an eviction notice. The Kimes had recorded hours of Irene's phone conversations using illegal wiretaps. They had practiced forging her signature in notebooks over and over again, trying to perfect it. On one tape found later, Sante was pretending to be a representative for the Circus Hotel in Las Vegas, telling Irene she'd want a vacation. Irene could pay for a frickin' vacation, right. Lady dumbass. Anyway, all Irene needed to do was provide her social security number to claim her prize. They'd been casing her for weeks, learning her schedule, her routines, her friends, and time was running out because Irene was going to evict Kenny, and so they had to act. So on July 5th, one of Irene's employees last saw her around 11:45 that morning when she requested that she go walk the dog and run some errands. It was Irene's last known sighting. Later that day, the employee returns, believing Irene was in her bedroom for an afternoon nap. She never answered the phone and told the caller Irene was asleep. I said that wrong. I'm sorry. She answered the phone and told the caller that Irene was asleep. Shortly before 5 o'clock, when Irene had not emerged from her bedroom, the staffer goes ahead and lets himself in, and the bedroom was in disarray, but Irene was not there. Her passport was missing, her jewelry was gone, and $10,000 in cash had vanished. Irene Silverman had disappeared from her own home. The consensus among investigators who would later work the case was that Irene was attacked between 11:30 and 12:30 in the hall outside her office. She was suffocated, wrapped in plastic, bundled into a car in a deserted street, and then driven away. According to Kenny's eventual confession, after Sante had used a stun gun on Irene, Kenny strangled her.
Oh.
At his mother's request, he put her body in the bathtub, wrapped her in a quilt and duct tape, and then placed her in the trunk of that Lincoln Town car that was also stolen. And then Kenny drove to New Jersey, where he dumped his mother's victim, just as he'd done with David Kasdan, somewhere she would never be found. To this day, her body still has never been found. It's never been recovered.
These guys are like it's disturbing how they can get rid of
that many people. Yeah. July 6th, the day after Irene's disappearance, police obtain a search warrant for apartment 1B. They find the stripped bed. They find the trash bags, the duct tape. They find evidence of Manny Guerin and his mysterious companion, Eva, but they couldn't find either of them. Police hold a press conference, publishing a photo of Manny and issuing a $10,000 reward, hoping to find Irene. But what they didn't know is that they'd already caught their suspects. So earlier that day, the FBI had arrested a woman and her adult son outside the New York Hilton near Silverman's townhouse. The arrest was for a totally unrelated case, a fugitive warrant from Utah for a fraudulent check written for $14,900 to purchase a Lincoln Town car. So I guess it wasn't stolen. It was fraudulently acquired. The woman was Sante, who was 63 at the time, and Kenneth was 23 at the time. FBI Supervisory Special Agent Emilio Blase saw the police report about the missing socialite and the composite sketch of Manny, and he called NYPD. That's my guy, he said. We've already got him. So when police searched Kenny and Sante at their request, they found items that made no sense for a simple check fraud case. Kenny had Irene's keys. He had cassette tapes of her recorded phone calls. He had an American Express card in her name. Sante had $10,000 in cash, which the exact amount missing from Irene's bedroom. But the real treasure trove was in their Lincoln Town car. They found in a Midtown Manhattan garage thanks to a parking stub. Inside, detectives find a 9mm handgun, the stun gun box, disposable gloves, $22,000 in cash, syringes, a large duffel bag, and a mason jar filled with Rohypnol, which is roofies, the date rape drug. There were wigs, masks, plastic handcuffs. There were blank Social Security cards and extra license plates. The car, as one investigator noted, seemed to have been acquired from a supermarket for criminals.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But most damning were the notebooks. 15 notebooks, to be exact.
Oh.
Page after page of Sante practicing Irene's signature, getting it perfect. Notes on Irene's daily schedule, her Social Security number, detailed descriptions of mortgage fraud schemes involving multiple identities. There were also forged deeds transferring Irene's multi-million-dollar townhouse to a shell corporation owned by the Kimes for just $395,000. The case was all circumstantial, though, because there was no body ever found, no blood, no DNA evidence. But the evidence of intent, overwhelming. Overwhelming. So as detectives investigated further, they uncovered the full scope of the criminal enterprise. They discovered Shantae's conviction for enslaving maids. They learned about her dozens of prior arrests. The trail led them to the Dave and Kasdan murder in Los Angeles, to the missing banker in the Bahamas, and to the suspicious fires in both Hawaii and Las Vegas. And then that drifter, do you remember me talking about him, Sean Little? He came forward and told authorities that he had accompanied Kenny to the Kasdan home in March and heard the gunshot.
See, I'm surprised. Like, when you had said that earlier, I was surprised that they would
didn't kill him.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
So Kenny, because that guy was riding along basically with Kenny. Yeah. So Kenny, I think that the mom is a clear sociopath. Like, she's off of it. But Kenny probably wasn't. He's just doing his due diligence.
He'll do what she tells him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he must have had some kind of a conscience, or he was just an idiot. Because
brainwashed. I think just robot.
Maybe.
Just like little, must do what mom says. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Stan Peterson, man who had sold the guns to the Kimes, was tracked down by the FBI. Facing potential felony charges, he agreed to cooperate. And it turned out that Sante had called him at the end of June in '98, telling him about an expensive townhouse in New York's Upper West Side that she wanted to sell and needed his help with the paperwork.
Yeah.
Patterson informed the FBI about the scheduled meeting, and on July 5th of '98, which is the day they nabbed Irene, Peterson meets Sante at the New York Hilton around 6 p.m. Around 7 p.m., Kenny arrives. That's when FBI and NYPD officers close in on them. And it was one of the few times Shantae's manipulative charms had worked against her. Okay, so now the trial. Trial begins February 15th in 2000 at the Manhattan Criminal Court. It would be unusual in many aspects, namely that there was no body ever recovered. Prosecutors had to prove murder based entirely on circumstantial evidence. And they argued that Sante killed not because she needed the money, because, again, she had millions of dollars she inherited from her late husband, but because she was thrill-seeking and compulsive. I'm surprised they didn't say sociopath, but anyway.
Maybe they didn't know that word yet.
This was someone who gets what she wants, said Clarissa McNair, who studied the case extensively. The prosecution presented the 15 notebooks with the practice signatures. They presented testimony that Sante, posing as Irene, had duped a notary into approving the fraudulent deed. They played the recording of Sante pretending to be from Circus Circus, trying to get Irene's Social Security number. I never figured out if she got it. They must have, though, because it was in the book, right?
Well,
they said her Social Security number was in one of those notebooks.
Okay.
So they presented evidence of the wiretap phone
she's
conversations.
like, yes, I won the Circus Circus.
That I don't need.
Here's my,
Yeah.
Although sometimes I think that in a weird way.
Rush.
Yes, like I won something. Like, even though you don't need it, it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The surveillance, all the stuff, all the plans. So the defense argued, of course, that without a body, without blood and all the stuff, you can't prove murder. But they offered alternative theories, like at one point even claiming that Irene operated a brothel from her mansion.
Like what?
A story that came from Sante and, of course, was proven to be untrue. Throughout the trial, Sante and Kenny frequently held hands in court.
Oh.
When I said icky,
Yeah.
like it was an icky way until the judge admonished them to stop. Neither took the stand in their
That's
own
funny.
defense.
The judges all, knock it off. You're making me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Go take a shower. Gross. Okay. Or I need to take a shower. I'm not sure which. Sante, because the judge ruled prosecutors could question her about previous convictions, including the slavery conviction. That's not going to paint her in a very good light. They didn't want her talking. After 3 months of testimony, the jury deliberated. On their very first poll, they voted unanimously, and on May 18th of 2000, the verdicts came down. Kenneth Kimes was found guilty on 60 separate charges. I don't know how he got more than Sante, but she got 58. Murder in the second degree, robbery, burglary, conspiracy, grand larceny, illegal weapons possession, forgery, eavesdropping, just the list goes on. During the sentencing portion of the trial, Sante makes a prolonged statement to the court. She blamed the authorities, including her own lawyers, for framing her and her son. She compared their trial to the Salem witch trials.
Oh, for the love.
She claimed the prosecutors were guilty of murdering the Constitution.
Stop.
Maybe she's really channeling her inner Elizabeth Taylor. The judge finally told her to be quiet.
You shut your mouth.
Enough out of you, lady. When she finished, Judge Rena Uveler, it's a different name, Uviller, responded that Sante was a sociopath and a degenerate, and that her son was both a dupe and a remorseless predator. On June 27th, 2000, they pronounced the sentences 125 years and 4 months for Kenneth and 120 years and 8 months for Sante. The decision represented perhaps the heaviest sentence handed down ever in U.S. history on a case built entirely on circumstantial evidence, which is why I thought this was interesting. But their story wasn't over. So October of 2000, Kenny did something that shocked even those who had followed his case. During a prison interview with Court TV reporter Maria Zone, he held her hostage by pressing a ballpoint pen into her throat. For 4 hours, Kenny held Maria captive, demanding that his mother not be extradited to California, where they both faced the death penalty for the David Kasdan murder. She was released unharmed. Kenny received 8 years in solitary confinement as punishment, but the incident revealed something crucial. Despite everything, Kenny's devotion to Sante, his mom, remained absolute.
Yep.
So in 2004, facing trial in California for the Kasdan murder and possibly the death penalty, Kenny made a deal. He agreed to plead guilty to Kasdan's murder and testify against his mother in exchange for neither of them facing execution. Quote, "I want to make it clear that I did not confess because I wanted to rat my mom out," Kenny later said. "I confessed because I was afraid of the death penalty for me or her." But once he started talking, he dished everything. He described how Kasdan and Silverman were murdered. He implicated his mother in both crimes. He confessed to the third murder of the banker.
Right.
And they had drugged and drowned, and that's how they learned about that. He provided details only the killer would know, so they believed him. Sante, however, denies everything, as sociopaths are wont to do. She called Kenny's confession a fabrication made to avoid the death penalty. She claimed any coercion came from him, not her. I mean, my goodness, I'm just a pretty woman, right? Mm-hmm. On July 7th, 2004, after less than a day of deliberations, a California jury convicted Sante of first-degree murder and conspiracy in the Kasdan case, and the judge called her one of the most evil individuals she had encountered in her time on the bench. Sante received an additional life sentence. She was returned to New York State to continue serving her first murder conviction, and then she would die there on May 19th of 2014 at the age of 79, still maintaining her innocence.
Jeez.
Today, Kenneth Kimes Jr. is 49 years old. He's incarcerated in California, serving life without parole. He shares a prison with other infamous convicted killers. In recent interviews, Kenny has struggled to reconcile his love for his mother with the horror of what they did together. He says, "I know a lot of people in my situation would say, she destroyed my life. And that's true to an extent, but I love my mom. She had a lot of baggage, and she was a complicated person with criminal tendencies, but I would never hate my mom. 2015, Kenny started a romantic correspondence with a California author whom he described as the love of his life. We were just talking about this off air, about people falling in love with
killers and
awful people like in prison.
that
I
are
don't
in
get
prison. It's alarming to me.
She died 3 years later after a bout of pneumonia, but he says she inspired him to become a better person, so he still remains devoted to her memory. He's turned to religion because he's going to believe he's going to be in heaven someday and see his mom there. I mean, you got to think believe what you can believe to get through the day, I suppose. These days, he thinks a lot about prevention and education. Maybe I would have been a high-profile murderer, he said, contemplating what might have happened if someone had intervened when he was a child and taken him away from his parents. Maybe I wouldn't have been. My whole life in criminality is a study on the outcome of lack of prevention. There are many kids like me who are on the road to destruction. And he says he understands why the families of his victims might hate him. Mm-hmm. His half-brother, Kent, on the other hand, managed to escape his mom's influence as a teenager, but the scars remain. I mean, there's probably not another son on this planet who loved his mother as much as I love mine, he said, but he did write that book, Son of a Grifter, and he details all of that, about why she was disappointed in him. And, I mean, it just goes on and on. There's also a book, Clarissa McNair, she was the PI involved in this. She wrote a book about Sante titled Never Flirt with a Femme Fatale. Yeah. She said, Sante was a very powerful, highly intelligent, ruthless, reckless woman. She manipulated her lawyers. She manipulated me, on and on. Yeah.
Well, she even manipulated her son so much. I mean, you listen to how loyal both of them are.
Like brainwashed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So Ken, the one who lost his father, he's now 71 years old. He still doesn't know exactly what happened to his dad. Sante admitted to Kenny that she killed him, but no charges were ever filed because his body was never found.
Right.
And so he just got to a bad point in his life. Ken said of his father, I think he just got caught up in a situation he didn't know how to get out of. And so that was that on nuts. That. Yeah. So... Mommy-son bonding. What do you think of that, KB?
I think it's highly disturbing, but it's, I don't know, anytime we have people who are complete sociopaths, I just always find it, like, mind-bending.
It is mind-boggling,
to, like,
isn't it?
And then the people that lay in the wake of the destruction, So, yeah, oof. Yikes.
I mean, we often talk about the way the brain operates and how people make certain decisions and manipulate and do whatever they need to get their needs met. But this is a whole new level of that because none of it was necessary.
No, none of it
was necessary. They had all the financial resources they would ever need.
But it was entertaining for her.
Yeah.
In a way. Or whatever she was getting out of it. And I don't even know that she was like purposefully grooming, Kenny, but it's like he's there, he's her. She, obviously there was something for him, but it's like, it does make you think about in any child-parent relationship, there is an opportunity. These kids look up to the parents as to like following them. Like your kids are watching what you're doing. Yeah, they look to you. Now, there is a difference, and this is where I kind of get a little bit boggled, is the difference of knowing right from wrong, right? And so like even in your circumstances growing up as a kid, it's like there were things that your parents didn't do, that were great. And so it's like you knew that. And so it's like you didn't just always go along with all of it, right? Where is that shift where you can get somebody like Kenny who is he so sheltered?
Just like,
do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, but that's
all of his playmates were bought and paid for.
Yeah, everything was so sheltered.
Was staged. Yeah. So she could get an outcome.
And so he wasn't able to see, he didn't know the difference between right or wrong.
Idea.
Yeah.
She filtered everything for him.
That's crazy.
Except for that brief stint where she was imprisoned for slavery and he had that bit of freedom.
Yeah, but that's like, what was that dad doing?
The damage was done. Well, an alcoholic, and I don't know. I don't get it.
He's probably just so...
Yeah, because I think they sent him to recovery instead, right? Yeah. She serves prison time. He's in alcohol treatment, and who knows what was happening.
Crazy.
But yeah, so that's the Mommy and Clyde. Also, there were in the source materials like allegations of an incestuous relationship, which may speak to that level of devotion that's just a little
Alarming. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But again, all alleged. I don't know if that's true or not.
yeah, I wouldn't want to watch the
It's
activity between the
horrific
two because it
enough
would be.
as it is.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
But that would also lean into the intense loyalty there.
Yeah.
You know? So you see that in other abuse cases or inappropriate relationship. You know what I mean? Like where that loyalty, like even that Sabrina that we did recently where it was the foster girl and she ends up in that relationship with the foster dad. And it's like the loyalty that is built there because of their,
Yeah. Her
you know.
everything. Building a future together.
Yep.
But it's true predatory. I mean, you've got the sociopathy, but then you have a true predator at the same time. It's just so, like I said, the kid did not stand a chance.
No.
And now he's served all this time in prison. He'll never get out.
No.
So, Mommy of the Year. Cha-ching.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us for this very first episode of Crisis and Consequences. If today's story made you think or gasp or maybe throw up in your mouth a little bit, please don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who loves a good deep dive into the gruesome side of humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. And please don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. If you're feeling generous, please drop us a 5-star review. It really helps other listeners find us. It supports our mission, you know, the mission behind every story here. If you have a crisis of your own, you would like to explore, we'd love to hear from you. Send us your ideas, tips, or personal stories to hello@crisisandconsequences.org.
.com.
.com.
.com, baby.
Or glitch. Or check out our website, connect with us on socials, become a patron. You'll find all the source materials, like Charity said, for this episode on our website or in the description box.
And it's crisisandconsequences.com, right?
Yes, crisisandconsequences.com.
All spelled out.
All spelled out. Because I was like Crisis and Co. I was looking for shorter opportunities, but I was like, it sounds like it's like company. Every time I see Co.
I do too.
Yeah, and then I was like Crisis and Con, and I was like, I don't love that either. So anyway, we got the whole kit and caboodle. So make sure you're spelling it right. Anyway, yes. So next week we'll be back with a brand new story.
Yeah, until next time, remember, life's messy. Keep coming back for more. We'll be there hanging with you. And if you can't avoid the chaos, at least make it a good story.
Absolutely.
Okay, bye, everybody.
All right, bye.